Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we will discuss what is a SOC 2 engagement, specifically SOC 2 attestation engagement, because SOC 2 is an attestation engagement. So what is an attestation engagement? Well, it's a service where auditors, CPAs, evaluate the reliability of a third-party statements, let's call assertions, about subjects, which is about the subject matter, such as financial statement, compliance, or controls using a particular benchmark or criteria. Think about the traditional audit. So if you completed your auditing exam for the CPA, and I hope you did, because before you take information systems and control, I strongly suggest that you complete the auditing exam. In the auditing exam, you learn about audit. What is an audit? An audit is a form of attestation engagement. In an audit, in a traditional audit, the company makes a claim, makes assertions about their financial statement. What is that assertion? That the financial statements are prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles. So the financial statements are the subject matter. GAAP is the benchmark or the criteria. Now, here comes the auditor. The auditor will audit or evaluate or audit the financial statement to determine whether the financial statements are prepared in accordance with GAAP, in accordance with the benchmark, in accordance with the criteria. So that's what an attestation engagement basically is. Someone makes a claim, management makes a claim, a written claim about assertions which we can measure. Here, the claim is about financial statements prepared in accordance with GAAP. The auditor's job is to determine whether the financial statements are fairly presented according to GAAP. Then the auditor will issue a report providing an opinion or a conclusion with varying level of assurance based on the type of the engagement. And this is what we do for an audit. So this process, the whole process, the purpose of this process, the reason we do all of this is to lend credibility to the audited information. So when the financial statements are audited, then it's easier for decision makers to rely on those financial statements. It's easier for the company to raise money. It's easier for the company to get a loan. Why? Because the auditor lends credibility, and this credibility is, since it's coming from a third party, the auditor who's independent and objective, other people will trust this. So taking what's attestation engagement is, now we're going to take a look at it, what is a SOC 2 attestation engagement, to be more specific, because we need to deal not with auditing of financial statements, SOC 2 financial statements. SOC 2, attestation engagement. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses, broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. So SOC 2 is a specific type of audit designed to evaluate and report on controls at service organization. What is service organization? Service organization, we talked about this when we talked about SOC engagement, is an organization that provides services to users' entity. The classic example that I gave you is Farhat Lecture, my company. I am the user entity, and I don't have my IT department, so I rely on a company called Best IT Support. This company, Best IT Support, is the service organization. So it provides me with the IT support that I need. I could get a company that helped me with my IT. It could help me with my payroll, with my HR need, with my bookkeeping, just a service organization. Now, before I rely on the service organization, before I trust the service organization, and especially if they are helping me with my IT, and I want to make sure that their controls are strong, relevant, reliable. So what I would do, I would ask them to conduct a SOC 2 engagement. Well, what happened under a SOC 2 attestation engagement? The type of audit designed to evaluate and report on controls in this company relevant to their security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Why? Because I am relying on them. And those 5 criteria that we discussed, we looked at them earlier, and those are called the trust services criteria. So here what we're doing is we're issuing a report based on these criteria. So the company, Best IT Support, is making a claim that their IT controls, they are secure, available, they process transaction with integrity, everything's confidential, and they protect the privacy of their client. Well, why don't you get an auditor to testify, to test these claims and issue a report for me? So this type of audit, when this happens, is guided by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountant. The benchmark is the AICPA, TSC, the Trust Services Criteria. So this type of audit is guided by the AICPA standard and specifically address the needs for service organization that store, process, or transmit information on behalf of the clients. So this is basically what a SOC 2 engagement, SOC 2 attestation engagement. You're making a claim that your controls, your IT controls at the service organization are secure, available, all the other good stuff. Well, give me a report from an external auditor that can confirm that. So in a SOC 2 engagement, to kind of summarize, management claim the controls were appropriately designed and implemented to meet the organization service commitment and system requirement. Because before I hire them, I want to make sure that their controls are appropriate. These controls, well, they would say these controls are based on the trust services criteria relevant to the chosen trust services criteria, whether it's security, availability, privacy, confidentiality, so on and so forth. So this is what they use. They said, yes, it is, and this is what we used. Here comes the auditor. The service auditor, the company that audit IT service, on the other hand, reviews management description and the controls to do what? To assess, to express an opinion on the accuracy and completeness of management description of the system. So they evaluate the suitability of the control design to see if it meets the specified objective according to the trust services criteria. Those are the specific criteria. So the auditor will say, okay, here's your assertions. Now I'm going to test these assertions to determine whether they are what you are claiming they are, using the trust service criteria. It's a criteria that you are using, the AICPA provided, I'm going to be using to evaluate you. Then I'm going to issue a report. And that SOC 2 report, we could have a type 1 SOC 2, type 2. If it's a SOC 2 type 1, the report evaluate whether the control were suitably designed to achieve the specified objective at a specified point. So type 1 is only about the design and for a point in time. If you are looking for a SOC 2 type 2 report, this goes further by asserting that these controls not only suitably designed, but also operated effectively over a period of time. So type 2 is this when we actually test to make sure it's working properly. In type 1, we're just looking at the design, see if design is proper. Let's go back and review what we just did. Again, we have Farhat Lectures as the user entity. IT Service is the service organization. IT Service provides services to Farhat Lectures. It's part of the IT department. Simply put, part of Farhat Lectures indirectly. Then we have the service auditor that audit the IT support. Then I have my own auditor. Now, the company is making a claim. This service organization is making a claim that their system, that their IT controls is in accordance with TSCs. So the subject matter is their IT control. The criteria that they're using is TSC and the COSO framework, which we'll look at next. And they're making an assertion about this. Here comes the auditor. The auditor means their auditor. Their auditor will do what? Will take the subject matter, their IT controls, and they will test it according to the criteria, the TSC criteria and COSO, and they will issue a report, an opinion, which is SOC 2, either type 1 or type 2. And who would use this type 1 or type 2? I can rely on it, whether I want to hire them or not. My auditor can rely on it because they need to audit me and they need to make sure my, in quote, IT support department has the proper control, so they can rely on this report. But the most important thing to remember from this session is the criteria. The criteria is the trust services criteria, and within the trust services criteria we're going to look at next, we could also use the COSO framework, which is also an already well-established framework. We looked at the TSCs TSC's criteria, we're going to look at the COSO framework and see how the TSC and the COSOs are integrated in the next session. I hope you have a better picture. I know we keep repeating the same information, but in a different way, but that's going to be helpful because the more you learn about the SOC engagement, you want to make sure everything is clear because we have SOC 1, SOC 2, Type 1, Type 2, and we have SOC 3. And we have to know the users. Who are the users? Is it for limited use? Is it for general use? And what are the criteria? The TSCs, the COSO framework. Stay motivated. We'll get there. Good luck. Farhat is always here to help, and go to the Farhat lectures to work MCQs.